What is up, Canada? What is up, YouTube? Matt McKeever here, and in today's video, we're going to be touching upon the upcoming the budget, presumably, that we're going to get. We didn't get a budget last year because COVID reasons and stuff, but presumably the Liberals will have to give us a budget for 2021, and in the next month or so, we should be able to see that budget. So today, what I really want to talk with you guys about is essentially what are maybe some of the things that we can expect to occur in that budget. What are some of the theories or hypotheses being put forward by some pundits, as well as always, we're going to focus on how, as real estate investors or just entrepreneurs and investors in general, where there's maybe some opportunities in this regards, and also just going to touch upon some of the other emergency benefits and items that impact us as real estate investors as well. So the first item I want to get to you guys with on today was Canada extends emergency wage and rent subsidies until June 5th. So this was just from yesterday in the Financial Post. So again, they're going to be extending the emergency wage and rent subsidy programs until June 5th to help people deal with the effects of the coronavirus epidemic. And government announced on Wednesday, let's stop that. So this isn't the time to pull back on support for workers or business owners. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau told a briefing. Ottawa has paid out more than $66 billion, US $52 billion in wage subsidies and $1.6 billion in rent subsidies, according to official data. So definitely no end to the stimulus train in the near future. So definitely, yeah, they're going to, these programs never die. Right? It's going to take forever for any of these programs to really disappear, or they're going to come out with some sort of bridge program. Again, it's just very rare for the government or any not-for-profit entity to ever voluntarily shrink. It doesn't make sense. They want to control their little fiefdom. But I'd love to hear your thoughts, your opinions, and where do you stand? Do you think that the rent subsidies should continue till June 5th? Do you think it should continue throughout 2021? What are your thoughts on the wage subsidies as well? Or do you think that maybe the government could just let us out and play and they wouldn't even have to worry about all these subsidies? Let me know your thoughts, your opinions in that comment section. And then not too much really touched upon here, but just wanted to highlight, if you guys want to check out this video on what to watch for in Ottawa's next budget. CIBC's chief economist kind of touches upon what they're expecting. This was more just kind of looking at one of the recent tax or economic updates, right? The economic statements, because we didn't get a budget in 2020. So reminder, there's four of these, right? The different economic statements or briefings, whatever you want to call them. But let's move on to 2021 budget, the time to keep promises, act on COVID-19 recovery, MPs. So this is from the CTV News. And just kind of wanted to give you a highlight of some of the things that I'm stumbling across in the mainstream media. Love to hear what you guys are seeing or what your thoughts are as well. And then later on, we'll talk about maybe some of the implications for us as real estate investors. So, essentially, the House of Commons Finance Committee tabled a pre-budget consultation report on Tuesday, focused on suggesting on how to keep up pandemic aid, as well as supporting rebuilding the economy in key sectors post-COVID-19. It also calls on the government to make good on a series of commitments, such as national childcare and pharmacare programs, while not setting the country on an unsustainable spending path. Yeah, I'm sure that we can both just have unprecedented stimulus, add on more government programs, and magically balance budget, because budgets balance themselves, right? Something like that. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think at this point in time the horse is out, and so it's almost useless to even complain about our fears about stimulus spending, inflation, and just the depreciation of our dollar against all real assets? Or do you think that maybe we can coax that horse back into the barn? Love to hear your thoughts and your opinions. The committee is recommending that in 2021 budget, the federal government takes action on childcare. Let me zoom in a little bit here. Standards or creating a nationalized system, put new money towards improving care in long-term care homes and other congregate living settings, and to move forward on enacting a national universal pharmacare program. So MPs are also calling on the government to keep up various COVID-19 support programs, such as Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, and to consider the implementation of a UBI. So we're definitely going to hear lots of talk about a UBI in the near future. I see Mr. Warbuck said, we don't need a budget. We are a broke country. Yeah, that you could take that sort of approach, I guess, where you're just like, you know what, we're so poor that we don't even need to worry about counting it anymore. So here were some of the other parts. So this is all in that kind of pre-budget, what's it called exactly? The pre-budget consultation report that they put out on Tuesdays. So there was like 105 recommendations, and among those, here's just kind of a quick little list. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Like, I feel like not all these are created equal, but you let me know. Implement a long-term mental health COVID-19 recovery plan. Yeah, you fucked up a lot of people, so you're probably going to need to pay for that. Address public health and PPE gaps at Canada's ports of entry. Sure, I guess. Restock the National Emergency Strategic Stockpile. I'm sure that we dipped into that a fair bit. Ensure a supply of clean drinking water for all Indigenous nations. Yeah. Develop a national aerospace strategy and require airline reimbursements. I mean, like, if it's the end of the world as we know, and like you literally can't leave your house because it's so dangerous, and you're supposed to just like lock your kid in a room for 14 days, even if they're asymptomatic and haven't tested positive, but they might have been in a room with someone that was. I mean, I don't know if an aerospace program is that important. It seems like we're just moments away from the end of the world as we know it. So I'd rather just count on Elon getting us there. But exempt credit card interchange fees from GST at the point of sale. Again, okay, but like, I mean, it's so weird. If it's the end of the world, I just don't know why we worry about some of these things. Increase funding for the Office of the Auditor General of Canada. Hopefully the Auditor General can maybe actually dig into some of these crazy ass fucking programs that are occurring, and eliminate targeted corporate welfare programs such as the funds given to Loblaws. Yeah, it would be really cool if we just dug deeper into all these other crazy little scandals that you read about these days, right? Like $1 million in spending here. Or do you guys hear about those crazy respiratory, some sort of respiratory medical device that like we had to buy immediately? So we signed this massive contract with a vendor, and then it turns out they couldn't supply it, and they're only delivering to us now the first batch of those things, but we're still obligated to pay for it. Like, it's bizarre how quickly we are just to rubber stamp anything, right? Same with like some of those vaccines that we can't use on old people, but like we need to get them right away. Develop a strong privacy policy to stop fraudulent claims for government benefits. Yeah, you've created so many programs. There's going to be so much grift. There's going to be so much graft here that you'll probably have to create a whole new entity just to go track down the bad actors because of the new program you created. It'll be a fun little cat and mouse game. You create a new program, then you create a counter program to catch the bad actors in the program, even though we probably could have just not had the program in the first place. And then the Paris Agreement, because climate change is wildly important, even though we're all about to die because of COVID. So this report is one of the documents the Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Freeland and the other federal officials who are in charge of crafting the federal budget will be able to consult to inform their drafting. Again, understand, like, I'm obviously being a little bit tongue-in-cheek with some of this stuff, guys, but where my real point is, like, we should actually just focus on the most important thing, which is opening up the economy, I would argue, which is just like returning to science and facts and things like that, rather than just like feelings and emotions. Earlier today, Louder with Crowder had a really funny bit where recently, I think it was the CDC came out, right, and said if you touch your mask, it essentially renders it, the whole purpose of it kind of moot. And you know, then he watched 1 minute clip of Joe Biden and he touched his mask 4 times in that 1 minute clip. And trust me, like I probably touch when I have a mask on, I'm touching at least 4 times during that period as well. So anyways, those are some of the things that you can potentially look towards in regards to what the budget may have. You know, the fall economic update projected a $381.6 billion deficit this fiscal year, which was considered Canada's best case scenario, is up from the $343 billion forecasted in July. We all know it's going to be a lot higher, right, guys? Like, who wants to hear right now? $400 billion minimum for sure. There's no way that we're not going to blow past that. Is that one of those like moonshots? Am I using the word right? Our debt is the moonshot. However, it was cautioned that should the pandemic situation continue to worsen in the country, yeah, again, it's going to be so much more. More than 800 submissions. So in order to complete the pre-budget consultation, that was something we actually touched upon previously on some of our live shows. MPs on the committee held a series of mostly virtual meetings. Yeah, I don't think we need to worry about too much of this. You know, the opposition will submit some stuff that won't go anywhere. The NDP has no teeth. threat of inflation. So yeah, let's get into like some of the real issues here. So one, that we might have a stimulus spending problem when the CBC thinks that we might be spending too much too soon. And I think this article really hits upon one of the things that's unfortunate is just the grandstanding that I think a lot of politicians are going to use for this time. And they're just going to be opportunists. They're not actually trying to help you. No one from the government is ever trying to help you. Freeland seemed only too happy on Wednesday to mention some recent grumblings about liberal government pandemic spending over last year. So for most of 2020, the government was faced with questions. So here's the quote. So I've been surprised to read some commentary suggesting that Canadians may be doing too well for their own good, the finance minister said. Some have pointed to rising household disposable income in the first 9 months of last year as evidence that our government acted too swiftly and too effectively to support Canadians. No, just giving a blank check to children isn't any sort of program. It isn't, guys. It will not surprise you that Freeland disagrees with that take. So Freeland's eager to note the criticism. Surely it's because she and the government know how difficult it might be for any of their political opponents to campaign against any of the specific measures. Yeah, it's really hard. I forget, there's an economic term for this, but understand the vested interest, right? When I cut you a check for $2,000 a month or whatever, 16, was it 2,000? Whatever it was. When I cut you a check for $2,000 a month, for me, like as a taxpayer, maybe that's like $1 out of my pocket. So I'm going to put $1 worth of fight into arguing it. But you that gets the $2,000 every month, that's everything to you. So you're going to fight tooth and nail to protect that program. Same with the new employees that get jobs because of those programs. They're going to fight tooth and nail to protect those programs. And that's why these things never disappear. And that's why it's so dangerous to just blindly jump into these things. Because at this point in time, we should realize that there's almost no such thing as a temporary government measure. Like, that's an oxymoron. There's nothing temporary about a government. They're focused on constantly creating a larger monopoly of power for themselves. That's just what they're in the business of doing. And you can't, I may get mad in a moment at the government, but it's like getting mad at a fox for getting into your hen house. No, you need to protect the hen house from the fox because the fox will just do as the fox's nature is to do. Politicians' nature is to treat us like shit and take advantage of us. So if we don't pay attention, if we don't protect ourselves from them, they will do just that. So again, on Monday, Statistics Canada released estimates that suggest Canadian households end up with more disposable income through the third quarter of 2020. And people wonder why we've got a housing crisis. Because of the unprecedented sums the federal government transferred to individuals through the various support programs. Although households did experience notable declines both in wages and salaries and in self-employment income in the second quarter, the value of COVID-19 support measures provided by government more than compensated for those losses, Stats Canada said. Before April 2020 and June 2020, Stats Canada estimates that households that had less than $26,500 in disposable income for 2019 saw their disposable income increase by 33.6%. Yeah, when the government gives you a 33% raise for doing nothing, what do you expect? You're creating a whole new class of people that are dependent upon the government. For those households with more than $64,900 in disposable income in 2019, the increase in disposable income in the second quarter of 2020 is estimated to be 7.1%. So I won't even get into it. As of October 3rd, 2020, the federal government had paid out $81.6 billion through the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, which provided $2,000 per month to those who lost their jobs as a result of COVID-19 lockdowns. It's funny how they can cause a problem and then they create a new problem, but they call it a solution, and they create a new problem, but they call it a solution. And we just constantly keep just coming in front of us and asking us to thank them. It's ridiculous. More analysis is needed to fully understand the distribution and impact of government spending last year. Professor at Wilfrid Laurier University notes that some of those in the bottom quintile would not have been making money before the pandemic began, and so wouldn't have lost any income, but they still would have benefited from increases in the Canada Child Benefit as well as the GST credit, which would have helped with extra expenses. Because if you guys aren't paying attention, inflation is wild right now. Most of you are familiar with housing inflation, right? And we'll touch upon that in a second and how all this ties into real estate. But the other aspect here too is, have you noticed your grocery bills getting a little bit more expensive? Like, you probably almost spend the same for groceries now as you used to spend on groceries and eating out, even though you just don't eat out anymore. There's rampant inflation. However, in the context that Canadians need something rolled out quickly, and our current infrastructure for employment insurance would not suffice because you guys created a catastrophe, this was an acceptable compromise in my view. So research conducted by 3 co-authors also estimated that nearly half of the job losses that occurred between February and April were suffered by those in the lowest quarter of earners. And again, it's just the government caused this issue. And it's so frustrating for me to see them patting themselves on their back and then being like, ha ha ha, we might have even wasted more money than was necessary and you can't stop us. It's just actually a little insulting to our intelligence. So, Mr. Warbucks was saying government is definitely too big and too expensive. Mark saying here, return the CERB now. I'm feeling the discrimination. EI has term limits. Yeah. Nathan, laugh out loud. I'm just as frustrated as you, Matt. Good to know I'm not alone. Yeah, and that's honestly what I think is important about this, guys. We need to air this to a degree. I know it can be really easy. You just want to keep your head down, nose to your work, and not really worry about anything else going on in the world. But eventually they will come for us too, right? And so we need to make sure that we're actually paying attention to what's going on. And even if we're not necessarily going to be on the front lines of fighting for liberty, we should be supporting those that are. So one of the things that I'm going to start doing a lot more, and I'll maybe pull it up right meow. I want to highlight a great Canadian content creator, Canada Poli. I'm just going to pull up my screen share here. But if you guys haven't checked out this website, I really encourage you to go over, support him. Check out the new post, and he's doing great stuff here. So again, he posts a video every single day, live and or not live, but he posts a video every single day on Rumble as well as BitChute, and you can jump over and check it out. Lots of great sources. I think he's doing a great thing. If he wasn't doing what he would do, I would feel compelled to have to do what he's doing. So I'm really glad he's doing what he's doing, and I want to encourage you guys to go over and support Mark as well. I think he's also I don't know a lot about his background, but he's based out of Guelph. I think he's ran in the past and likely will be running in the future for local office there as well. So definitely worth digging a little bit deeper into him. You may not agree with all of his thoughts or all of his opinions, but I'm just happy to see that there's at least a few dissenting Canadians out there that are happy to share the information and try and spread the word, because he was one of the first ones to really jump on all that silliness that was going on with the health region appeal or whatever that thing was with locking your kids up. So again, it's important that we share the resources. So let me know in the comments, let your fellow Canucks know in the comments if there's other great Canadian content creators out there that are sharing some of our frustrations, that are maybe even giving some solutions. One of the funny things right now that Canada Poli has been doing is, if you guys weren't watching, one of the new ways the government decided to spend our money was send every Canadian a postcard, just because why not, right? And so I think it's got prepaid stamps or whatever postage on it, right? So what he's encouraging everyone to do is to either send it to a conservative cabinet member so that they can present it, or literally mail it to Sussex Drive or mail it to Parliament and just ask Trudeau to resign, or ask the Liberals to let us out of lockdown. Either one doesn't matter to me, dealer's choice. But at least I think that that's a clever, if not productive, at least it feels good sort of approach. So if and when we get our postcard, I look forward to mailing it to Mr. Trudeau myself as well. But yeah, it's important that we pay attention, because these scoundrels will continue to be scoundrels because it's in their nature. So let's talk about how we can actually be practical with this. What can we actually do with this news? Well, one, we're going to have to wait and see. Who knows what silly programs the government will try and roll out. But one thing we do know is they're going to spend a ton of money. They're going to create a lot more stimulus. That's going to create a lot more inflation. When you create more dollars, especially when you're injecting it right in the way that they're doing directly to consumers are going to consume, right? So one, like Amazon, Uber Eats, a lot of those companies are going to make out like bandits while we continue to be through lockdown. Because I don't know if you guys saw, but there was something in a European newspaper or something that they were saying, like, it would be great if we could just go through a lockdown every 2 years for climate change and things of that nature. And it was Greta would really appreciate it if we would just do that for her. So like I said at the start of this year, I think the lockdown season's here to stay. Just the government's found a really cool new toy. There's no way they're going to let us take it away from them. At best, hopefully we can just limit the times they get to play with that toy at this point in time. But that means a lot of things, right? It means that I think that Canadians are going to continue to be biased towards wanting Canadian travel, right? We're going to probably really start to penalize Canadians that travel abroad. I don't know if you recently saw, but there's was it a provincial or a federal judge is getting in trouble because he was judging from was it Bermuda or the Bahamas? He was judging court cases and stuff like that. So again, I'm not even saying I've got an opinion one way or the other, but it seems like a little privilege to have a judge out of our country, but still getting paid judge salaries. But anyways, bigger to that point is the mainstream media will absolutely jump on that. And we're going to see more anti-travel and anti-tourism. We're going to see less and less people being supported to think of traveling. Okay, I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm saying it's bad. But what I'm saying here is even bigger to that is how that's going to impact people, right? I think that short-term rentals, I think cottage homes, cottage properties, vacation rentals are going to be very hot this year. And unless things change dramatically, I think they'll continue to go hot into 2020 too. And in addition to that, I think Canadian real estate is just, I know that it's wildly hot. I know it doesn't make sense on the surface, but what I also know is all the supply and demand data points towards this market continuing for the foreseeable future. Now, again, maybe if the government was going completely just go back to normal, we'd see a cooling off period and everyone would kind of catch our breath. But I don't think that that's going to happen. And so I think we're going to see a lot of people fleeing from other asset classes into real estate because it's going to feel safe, or they're going to rationalize and be like, well, if nothing else, at least I've got a roof over my head. At least I've got a patch of grass that I can grow a little garden on. And that would have seemed silly to say a year ago, but now that makes a lot of sense to me. And really, in fact, this weekend, we're going to go look at a 35-acre compound. I mean, compound. It's kind of the middle of nowhere. I'm really excited to go check out this property. But I think we're going to see a lot more people like me consider fleeing the cities. So, City of London, you're making a real big pain in my fucking ass to get the zoning permissions to have a YouTube studio. So I'll just go move to an unincorporated township where I can do whatever the fuck I want. And because of the internet and technology, I think we're going to continue to see some people choosing to flee from major cities. Now, again, that doesn't mean that I think it's going to become a mainstream trend. I think that Toronto will continue to see lots of demand, because it's also important to understand that while we're focused on Canadian real estate, it's not only Canadians involved in Canadian real estate, right? All things being equal, while I may bitch and complain about all the stupidity our government's doing, in the big scheme of things, Canada's still an amazing country, and it's still very enticing for a lot of immigrants, and it seems like the government's going to push to have a lot more immigration. And again, that's going to create a lot more demand for housing. People aren't going to be traveling. People are going to be working from home more. All of these trends are going to really force people to want more space. If you're in lockdown more, you're going to want more space as well. You're going to want nicer spaces. You're going to want to upgrade or invest into that space. So all of this makes me bullish on Canadian real estate. Now, that doesn't make me blind. That means I don't want to see you guys just jumping in, counting on the greater fool theory, even though you can probably win these days with that as your basis of your thesis for investing. But focus on fundamentals. Focus on the data. And if anything, right now in 2021, you guys need to be working twice as hard when it comes to studying your data. You need to be really dialed in and looking at the numbers, right? If you're not checking the CREA stats every month in your city, if you're not getting comps sent to you every week from your comp realtor, you're not taking this seriously enough. And that's scary to me, especially in such a hot market. One, it means you're going to miss out on opportunities. But two, it means you could be left holding the bag if and when there is a correction. Because again, it seems unlikely that a market can always just go up. But, when we can have lockdowns for no reason, who knows what we can have. So love to hear your thoughts, your comments, as well as your approach. Are you guys still aggressively acquiring real estate in 2021? If so, what cities or markets? And are you looking in different markets? In fact, today, FYI, guys, we just closed on a 22-unit apartment building in Chatham. So we're starting to look a little bit further abroad in regards to, or actually, is it tomorrow? I signed the papers today and we close tomorrow. But anyways, we're starting to look a little bit further abroad in Southwestern Ontario to grow our portfolio because of how aggressive the company, or how aggressive real estate is, right? And I saw like there was a commenter the other day on my YouTube channel that was like, it's all realtors' faults for expensive real estate. It's not, guys. It's your government's fault. It's all their policies, cheap interest rates, restrictive zoning, right? Green belts, all those things result in restricted supply. And then you've got lockdowns and working from home and social distancing. All those things then create demand. Just natural recipe for craziness. You guys want Trump. We didn't. I'm Canadian, bro. So definitely make sure you understand I am Canadian. That's why we've got Canadian flags everywhere. And 10, 15 years from now, you'll have a different perspective. Trust me when you grow up. But anyways, I appreciate the rest of you in the comments that understand the fact that we shouldn't just hand over power blindly to our government, and we shouldn't just simply bend over and ask for more. So anyways, I appreciate you guys. That's enough of this. I'm going to wrap up, and we'll see you in the next